Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 3rd of February 2022. These are the stories that we'll be discussing in detail during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, by the visit to the People's Republic of China of our Prime Minister Imran Khan. He's leading a high-level delegation to China. Not only will they be attending the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics in Beijing, but they will also be meeting with many important leaders, whether it be the President of the People's Republic of China, His Excellency Xi Jinping, or the Prime Minister, Mr. Li Keqiang, or whether it be delegation level discussions, whether it be the meeting between the two foreign ministers of Pakistan and China. There are a lot of important meetings that are to be held. Also, an emphasis will be laid on economy and trade and further boosting the collaboration and cooperation between the two friendly countries. This is going to be our leading segment of the day. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the terrorist attacks that have happened in Balochistan, and of course we'll be discussing Pakistan's war against terrorism and such extremist elements that have been creating havoc in Balochistan and also in parts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. 13 terrorists have been killed during security forces operations at Noshki and Panjgur. This was also confirmed by Sheikh Rashid Ahmed Saab, who is our Minister of Interior, and also by the ISPR. This is our second story of the day. Then, ladies and gentlemen, our last two stories pertain to India. The first story concerns about a report that has been released that talks about the amount of journalists that have been killed. At least 6 journalists killed, another 108 attacked, 13 media houses have been targeted in India in the year 2021 alone. And of course, we'll be talking about the denial of media freedom as far as India is concerned, because people are not allowed to talk about what is really happening in our not so friendly neighborhood country, whether it be what is happening in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir or other parts of India. And then, ladies and gentlemen, finally we'll be talking about Rahul Gandhi, who is the leader of the opposition, who in the Lok Sabha blasted the BJP government. He said that there have been major foreign policy blunders that have been made by the current government. He said strategic mistakes have been made in Jammu and Kashmir as well as in the foreign policy. This is going to be our last story of the day. Let's begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the first segment of today, our first story, and that concerns our Prime Minister Imran Khan, who is leading a high-level delegation to the People's Republic of China. He will be meeting very important people, including the Chinese President Xi Jinping, who will be meeting with a world leader after a period of 2 years, and our Premier Imran Khan Saab will be the first world leader who he will be meeting. More in the following report.
The fraternal neighbors and all-weather strategic partners China-Pakistan reflect idealist case of modern interstate relations. The ironclad brotherhood has reached a pinnacle that finds few parallels in the modern history, and hence at the special invitation of Chinese leadership, Premier Imran Khan has left on a 4-day visit to attend the opening ceremony of the Beijing Winter Olympics Games 2022. In order to reinvigorate Pakistan-China bilateral trade and investment with China, the agenda of visit focuses upon enhancing trade, seeking investment and transfer of industries from China to Pakistan. According to Prime Minister Office, a number of MOUs and agreements would be concluded during the visit, and the Prime Minister would also meet prominent business leaders of China and representatives of leading Chinese think tanks, academia and the media. Pakistan has been wishing China all success in this splendid sporting extravaganza, as Beijing Olympics would bring people together by passing on very important sentiments of friendship and goodwill. Eulogizing Beijing Olympics as a global event, Ministry of Foreign Affairs praised meticulous arrangements made by Chinese government and stated that the Olympic Games foster mutual understanding, inclusivity and friendship among the people of the world. Highlighting Pakistan's prompt and clear stance regarding China-Pakistan economic corridor, Premier Imran Khan would convey Pakistan's enduring commitment to this ambitious project, considering CPEC as central to its economic growth and prosperity, and hence would ensure all efforts to expedite the process. Pakistan's decision to attend Beijing Winter Olympics Games has immense foreign policy significance and illustrates resolve of both countries to collectively brave the rigors of complex geopolitical environment.
And now, of course, we'll be discussing in detail what it means to be in the whole gamut of relationship between Pakistan, the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, and the People's Republic of China. Both the countries are considered as iron brothers. Their friendship has seen the test of times, and they've always stood by each other in the good as well as in the bad times. Now, COVID-19 has played havoc with the world, including China, including Pakistan, and that is why there was a lot of effort made by both countries jointly and also on their own end in order to curb this menace. Now that the menace has more or less been curbed to a large extent, the Winter Olympics in Beijing are also about to begin, and the opening ceremony will be attended by Prime Minister Imran Khan. He was invited for it specially by the Chinese government. And now once the Prime Minister Imran Khan will be in China, he will not only be attending the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics, but he will also be meeting with very important leaders, including the Chinese President Xi Jinping, who will be meeting with the world leader after a period of 2 years. And our Prime Minister Imran Khan will be the first personality that he will be meeting after this gap of 2 years. Also, our Prime Minister will be meeting with his counterpart, that is the Chinese Prime Minister Li Keqiang, along with the delegation. There are going to be also delegation level talks between Pakistan and China on different important matters. One of the main agendas of the talks between Pakistan and China is going to be in fact economy and trade. Now, as far as economy and trade is concerned, whether it be the China-Pakistan economic corridor, that is a testament of this time-tested relationship between Pakistan and China, or whether it be other avenues, or whether it be other Chinese companies that are working in Pakistan. Pakistan and China have worked together and are still working together in order to further cement the bond of friendship, of cooperation, of collaboration between each other. Now, during this visit also, our Prime Minister will be talking about that, on how to enhance further this trade and economic relationship between the two countries. There are, of course, a lot of talks as far as bringing a lot of Chinese companies to Pakistan, who will be relocating their industries into our country, and that is going to also give a huge boost as far as Pakistan's economy is concerned, whether it be through the manpower, whether it be through the job creation, or whether it be also through economic stability in Pakistan. Also, one of the topics that are going to be discussed as far as economy is concerned is the special economic zones that have been created under the China-Pakistan economic corridor, how to further strengthen and stabilize these SEZs. Then trade, information technology. Information technology is also one of the factors that has been extremely important for both China and Pakistan, and both countries have the resolve to work together as far as the sector of IT is concerned. Now, IT also, in the whole challenge that this region is confronted with, whether it be through the spoilers like India that is trying to create this hybrid warfare, of which the information technology is a huge part. That is why Pakistan and China want to also work together in order to kind of work against such elements who are trying to destabilize both these countries directly or indirectly. Agriculture is also going to be one of the segments, one of the massive subjects that will be under discussion. Agriculture, Pakistan is an agriculture-based economy, and ways and means on how to boost Pakistan's agriculture industry and how China could help Pakistan in that also will be discussed during the course of these discussions. Zameer Akram Saab, who's a former ambassador, joins us online. Akram Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Akram Saab, a lot of importance is being given to this visit of our Prime Minister Imran Khan to the People's Republic of China, whether it be through this collaboration in the sports field by not only attending the Winter Olympics and of course Pakistan's contingent also in China, but also in other fields, especially trade. How do you view this trip, and how important is this trip both for Pakistan and for China?
I think it's a very important visit. I think the significance can be judged from the fact that Prime Minister Imran Khan will be among the two main leaders that President Xi will be meeting after almost 2 years of the COVID lockdown. The other is, of course, President Putin. So it's very important. This signifies the importance of the Prime Minister's visit and the importance given to the Prime Minister by the Chinese. For Pakistan, and particularly in the current international environment, this is an important visit to underscore the long-standing strategic relationship that has existed between China and Pakistan, and which has become even more important in the current environment, which is a multipolar world. And in this environment, Pakistan has a key role to play, especially in this region, in the Asia region, in the Asia Pacific region. So this is a really important visit. Also bilaterally, this visit will boost the cooperation between the two countries. Particularly, it will give a fill-up to the CPEC partnership that we have with the Chinese. And I think that this is going to be one of the, I think, very important turning points in helping Pakistan meet also with its domestic economic challenges that we are currently facing.
Zameer Saab, let's begin with the strategic relationship and this partnership. Now, when we talk of the whole scenario in the region or in the globe, a lot of changes are being made, whether it be the tensions between China and the United States of America on different fields, on different fronts, whether it be the crisis in Ukraine. There are a lot of developments and very rapid developments that are happening in the whole global arena. How could Pakistan and China, along with the other partners, you mentioned Russia as well, whose leader is going to be there as well in China, could work together in order to create a common front?
I don't think we need to create a common front because I think neither China nor Pakistan, or even for that matter, the Russians, want a confrontation with the United States and its allies. What we want is to have a stable international order in which the international community is able to cooperate and also to avoid the outbreak of any kind of hostilities and resolve tensions that you mentioned, for instance, in Ukraine between Russia and the U.S. and its partners. So overall, I think it is in the interests of Pakistan and China to engage with the entire international community, including with the United States. And our purpose is to encourage the evolution and recognition of a multipolar international order rather than an order dominated by one power or the other. So I think that is the real strategic convergence between Pakistan and China, or for that matter, between Pakistan and Russia as well.
All right, Zameer Saab, there's another very important topic that will be also part of the discussion, as has been enunciated by Shah Mahmood Qureshi Saab, and that is Afghanistan. Now, that is also an important part of this region, and also one country that needs to be stabilized at the earliest because of the current crisis that it is engulfed in. Do you feel that the voices, the joint or common voices of the friendly countries like China, Pakistan and others could pave the way for a more stable Afghanistan?
That is certainly our effort, and that, you will recall recently convened a meeting of the OIC in which a number of other countries, non-OIC members, were also invited to address the most pressing issue in Afghanistan, which is the humanitarian crisis. And I think that initiative has had a beneficial impact in the sense that the UN has mobilized resources and has called for contributions to help mitigate this humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. But moving beyond that humanitarian crisis, I think Pakistan and China, Russia, the Central Asian countries, Iran, all of us have a key vested interest in the future stability and peace and security in Afghanistan. I think that working with large major powers like China will help to bring about that kind of stability in Afghanistan.
All right. Zameer Saab, Fawad Chaudhry Saab has said that there have been 21 sectors that have been identified as far as cooperation with China are concerned, and they will be discussed with the Chinese leadership. Now, when we talk of Pakistan and China collaboration, we've seen different arenas in which both the countries continue to cooperate, continue to collaborate. Do you feel there are avenues in your point of view that could be further strengthened? Are there some lacunas you feel are present that could be taken care of by the Pakistani government in order to further cement the bond with China?
I think that there has been a lack of application and focused, concentrated action on the Pakistani side towards the implementation of CPEC projects and other areas of cooperation with the Chinese. So I think that is something that for Pakistan to do. I do not see this as a problem from the Chinese side. They are ready to help us. They have invested a considerable amount of money, but a number of projects are waiting to be implemented largely because of structural problems, our own administrative problems, our implementation problems. we have to overcome these kind of problems. One, second, I think that we need to provide better security to the Chinese who are working in Pakistan. We know that there are certain powers like India that are trying to undermine CPEC. They are trying to undermine the Pakistan-China relationship. And one of the ways they are trying to do that is to promote terrorists and terrorist actions against Pakistan and especially against the Chinese. So we need to overcome that aspect of the issue as well. In terms of the areas, I think what has been identified by the government are the real areas. But I would say in terms of prioritizing this, first we need to fully implement those projects under CPEC that have not been completed. And second, I think that we need to engage with the Chinese for their investment. We need their foreign direct investment in Pakistan through the Chinese government and through the Chinese private sector. That is going to be of tremendous benefit to Pakistan. And thirdly, I think it is important that the Chinese help or the Chinese increase their purchasing. I mean, that Pakistani exports to China need to be increased. We have a free trade agreement with the Chinese, and that free trade agreement needs to be implemented in a much more focused and concentrated manner. Again, I would say that to a large extent, the problem has been on our side rather than on the Chinese side.
All right. There is also talk, and of course, Fawad Chaudhry Saab has also confirmed it in a video message that he posted today, and he talked about the relocation of massive Chinese industries to Pakistan. Will that prove to be a boost for the Pakistani industry or Pakistan's economy?
Definitely, it will do that. And that's what I mean by investment in Pakistan's industry and Pakistan's infrastructure. Now, on the infrastructure side, CPEC has already made much headway, and some projects need to be completed, like the free trade zones, Rashakai, and some others that still, there are operational problems. For instance, they don't have electricity. There is a need to build the roads. That's for us to do, and we need to do that on a emergency basis because these things need to be implemented as soon as possible.
All right, Zameer Saab, also, when we talk of collaboration, there's one field that is extremely important, that is information technology. In the whole gamut of hybrid warfare that is imposed on us and has been imposed since the last some time by India, how important is collaboration in information technology to learn from each other's expertise and experience?
Again, this is an area which is part of the overall CPEC arrangement. And that's the kind of next steps of the second and third phases of CPEC, and we need to be able to benefit from the advances that the Chinese have made in the IT sector. Pakistan has a pretty good IT sector itself, and we need to be able to improve the complementarities between our two countries in the IT sector. The Chinese have made tremendous progress in this field, and we need to further develop our cooperation in this area.
All right, Zameer Saab, I'll just continue talking on investment because I think that's a very important avenue for Pakistan, despite the lacunas that you feel Pakistan has and can easily work upon. The Prime Minister will also be meeting, as per Shah Mahmood Qureshi Saab, as well as the Prime Minister's Special Assistant on CPEC, Khalid Saab, that he'll be meeting with the major Chinese industrialists, the CEOs of the major Chinese company, in order to further look into trade collaboration between the two friendly countries. Do you feel there are any aspects of trade or any part of the industry that either country could benefit from?
Well, certainly, you see, the Chinese economy is huge compared to Pakistan. It's in any case, as you know, the largest economy in the world and China is the largest exporter in the world. But China also is a huge market, which unfortunately Pakistani exporters have not really fully tapped, despite there being a free trade agreement between the two countries. And that has been, in my view, that's because most of our exporters have been focused on the Western market and have not really focused enough to develop markets in China. I think the time has come that I'm not saying that we should abandon the Western market, but certainly we should look for more opportunities in China and utilize those opportunities to increase our exports.
All right, Zameer, finally, you talked about Pakistani exports and that Pakistan's export needs to be strengthened, and that is also something that has been said time and again by our Prime Minister on different fora. Now, when we talk of exports and building on exports, you talked about the free trade agreement that is present between the two countries, but that the Pakistani side hasn't yet fully utilized it to its maximum potential. What are the areas, in your point of view, in Pakistan where Pakistan could work a little bit more and export to countries like China or to other countries through China?
I think that the areas range from agricultural products we have had for some years, for instance, export of fruits such as mangoes and other things, and a whole range of other agricultural products, and it can move on to other industrial products as well. We can have greater collaboration between Chinese and Pakistani manufacturers. The Chinese have, as I said, a huge trade surplus all over the world. They are the largest trading country. They can relocate their industries in Pakistan and use that as a base from where they can increase their exports, which will benefit Pakistan as well. There is a tremendous amount of opportunities if we are willing to look and build on those opportunities.
All right. Thank you very much, Zameer Akram, former ambassador, talking to us about Pakistan and China collaboration, friendship, cooperation, and ways and means through which Pakistan can further enhance this cooperation in different fields, especially in trade and economy. Let's come to our second story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the terror attacks that have recently taken place in Balochistan. 13 terrorists have been killed during security forces operations that were made at Noshki and Panjgur. Pakistan has the resolve of working against all such elements that are anti-state. This is an extremely important avenue, and Pakistan has waged 3 important wars against terrorism as well. More in the following report.
The surge in violence reflects the formidable sacrifices Pakistan faces in curbing terrorism. Terrorists attempted to attack security forces camps in Balochistan's Panjgur and Noshki in 2 separate attacks. According to ISPR statement, both the attacks have been successfully repulsed while inflicting heavy casualties to terrorists, and timely response by troops foiled terrorist attempt. Lauding the brave sons of soil, Prime Minister Imran Khan paid tribute to armed forces for repulsing terror attacks against security forces camps. The Premier further extended the nation's support to the armed forces, who continue to give great sacrifices to protect us. Security forces foiled 2 major terrorist attacks in Noshki and Panjgur, killing approximately 12 terrorists, whereby brave soldiers of Pakistan Army also embraced martyrdom. Meanwhile, Federal Minister for Interior Sheikh Rashid Ahmed paid tribute to the determination and courage of the security forces in eradicating terrorism and acknowledged the capabilities of security forces fighting any kind of terrorism. Balochistan Chief Minister Mir Abdul Qudus Bazinjo also praised security forces for thwarting the attacks, citing that the terrorists cannot intimidate our brave security forces with cowardly attacks. Our security forces are making history. The sacrifices of the Pakistan forces have paved the way for better security in the province. Pakistan armed forces are playing a pivotal role for ensuring stability in Balochistan and has undertaken all possible effort towards elimination of terrorism and the achievement of enduring peace in the country.
Now, to talk more about this, we'll be joined by Sangeen Khan Panezai, who is an analyst. Sangeen, thank you very much to have joined us. Sangeen, when you look at these terrorist attacks that have been happening since the last few months, whether it be in Balochistan or in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Is it a ploy to further destabilize Pakistan? Is it a ploy to defame Pakistan? Or is there some other agenda that these extremist elements have in their mind?
rich tributes to our brave forces, armed forces.
Sangeen, could you speak a bit louder, please? We can't hear you.
Am I audible?
Yes, now you are.
Thank you so much, sir, for having me. First of all, rich tributes to our brave forces, intelligence personnel, security agencies for their, decisive and quick action in order to foil the nefarious designs of the enemies. Alhamdulillah, with brave their effort, they foiled the nefarious designs. As per your question, yes, we do know that the recent attacks, the upstick in terrorist activities in Balochistan, we can connect the dots, the interference of foreign elements. And that aspect, Afghanistan is one of the very interesting phenomena. We see the instability in Afghanistan as creating instability in Balochistan. And that, in that context, instability in Balochistan, sabotage in Balochistan is an Indian priority. And India seems to be pouring funds onto the Baloch separatists in attacks on our armed forces. And in this context, the very important aspect we see in order to, defame the standing of Pakistan. And recently we see the Pakistan's Super League, Pakistan Cricket League, one aspect, and then visit of Prime Minister Imran Khan in this context is very much important because the external nefarious elements, they don't want Pakistan with regards to the CPEC because the foreign elements, they don't want CPEC to be expanded. So in my understanding, yes, there is the involvement of foreign because it's very, ironical. The irony is that such a coordinated attack, Panjgur and Cage and Turbat, it cannot be happened without the coordinated effort of the external elements. So we cannot deny. And it is very worth mentioning, it is a stark reminder, a kind of caution for our security agencies to have a quick and further kinetic operations against these nefarious elements in order to foil their nefarious designs. And I'm very much confident our intelligence personnel, security agencies are determined enough. They know well from where these attacks are happening. And we are, as a nation, we are also, determined and, stand united with forces.
All right, Sangeen, when you look at these incidents, and there have been a spate of incidents in the last few weeks. The first, of course, 13 terrorists have been killed, of course, at Noshki and at Panjgur. Then before that, there was, of course, the 10 soldiers who were also martyred a couple of days back. Then, if we go back and even a few weeks back, there have been other incidents in Balochistan, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as well. Why are there these two areas that have been specifically, denoted by these extremist elements in order to destabilize or try to destabilize Pakistan?
Well, primarily these two regions, Balochistan and KPK and the former FATA, these have been the prime target of the terrorist attacks. We know the various confessional statements of the incarcerated Indian agent Gulbashan Yadav. He himself, confessed it, having confession that running a network in Balochistan and Karachi and former FATA and KPK, because these regions have been back in the past, kind of kinetic instability exists here. So they are trying to exploit these fault lines, and we cannot rule out the possibility of Afghanistan because instability in Afghanistan will have repercussions in Pakistan in general and Balochistan in particular, because on the request of Pakistan, after Afghan Taliban took over, the Afghan Taliban did greater efforts. They made efforts in order to kick out these separatist organizations or TTP. Now, the epicenter is shifting away from Afghanistan to various neighboring countries. So here we cannot, rule out the possibility of, the Pakistan neighboring countries supporting these funding and training, specifically the India. Now, various intelligence assessments show the India primarily supporting these Baloch separatist organizations. Now, what is really needed in this hour, because it is a stark reminder, a caution for our security agencies along the border of Afghanistan and Balochistan bordering Iran. There's a need of kinetic cooperation to, again, as a whole, to eliminate the root causes of these terrorist organizations. Secondly,
Sangeen,
what is really needed...
Sangeen, I'd like to intervene and ask you what needs to be done by our agencies, by our armed forces, by our government in order to curtail these incidents, because we see a spate of such incidents happening in the last few weeks and months.
First of all, what is really needed by security agencies, no doubt, back in the past, military operations, intelligence, contribution have been commendable. They eliminate, they kick out these terrorist organizations. But where does the fault line exist? Again, because it requires two-pronged strategy. One, and that is soft development approach, and that is to address the socio-economic grievances of the citizens. It is a reality in Balochistan, such a largest province, least populous, least developed. Unfortunately, the issue lies in the political setup, because Balochistan remained neglected in the past. But I really appreciate the efforts of federal government. There has been flow of finances, support from the Pakistan Army, various cadet colleges, military colleges. There has been the influx of Baloch youth in the military. Army is doing commendable job. So I think two-pronged strategy. First, soft development approach, improve the development, education, and the benefit should go to the local citizens. Address the grievances of the Baloch people so that the external elements could not exploit the fault lines. One. The second important aspect is the kinetic operation. Now we see the recent uptick of terrorism in Balochistan demands us to have a very decisive and kinetic operations against those who challenge the writ of the state. In this regard, I'm very much confident our military, armed forces, and security agencies are in coordination to completely eliminate those, the root causes of terrorism from Balochistan.
All right, now Sangeen, also let's talk about spoilers, especially let's talk about India. Now, intelligence agencies, as per the reports, have intercepted communications between these terrorists that were involved in these two attacks in Noshki and Panjgur and their handlers in Afghanistan and India. Now, Afghanistan we've talked about, and you've talked about the instability in Afghanistan that is going to further lead to instability and trickling down of such elements into the neighboring countries, and of course Pakistan becomes one of the targets. What about India? How should Pakistan react now when we have ample proof, not since of this incident, but of many different incidents in the past as well? If you remember as well what happened in Lahore, we had ample proof that India was behind it as well.
Very importantly, we do know that we need to convey to the international community, Pakistan being a victim of terrorism, but unfortunately, due to our, some low efforts at diplomatic front, the world is trying to blame Pakistan. So in this regard, Pakistan should speed up its diplomatic efforts to speed up diplomatic maneuverability that Pakistan is the victim. However, India is trying to interfere in Balochistan, in Pakistan, one thing, because we see a recent attack in Lahore, in Balochistan, and the intelligence assessment and the way they intercepted the communication with India and link from the India and Afghanistan. With regards to Afghanistan, we should understand this thing that as of now, Afghan Taliban has not completely established the writ. Yes, there has been much insistence and pressure of Pakistan on the Afghan Taliban to take decisive actions against those, nefarious elements they are trying to challenge, create, disharmony, instability in Pakistan. So I think there is two-way approach is required. At diplomatic level, Pakistan should raise this issue at the international level about the Indian interference and expose what India is trying to create instability in Balochistan in particular and Pakistan in general. Secondly, Pakistan should create, Pakistan, especially in Balochistan, there should be focus on governance. I mean, when there is no fault lines, nobody can challenge the fault lines. In this regard, I would, request the provisional government of Balochistan. They should focus on improve their governance. They should, bring more competent people on the right place, on the right people, on the right, right people for the right place, so that these elements could not exploit the fault lines. So this is what my take.
All right. Also internally, we've talked about in the past as well with yourself and with others about the sleeper cells that are present in Pakistan, and also elements that are present within Pakistan that are working in tandem with these external forces that are trying to destabilize and defame Pakistan in whatsoever manner they can. Now, internally, how important also do you feel is the role of the common man? Is the role of the local leaders, is the role of the religious leaders, the ulama, in order to further inform and tell the people that in case they do have some kind of inclination or they think that somebody is involved in such nefarious activities, that they need to be informing the requisite, of course, agencies or the army about it?
Very important point that you highlighted. We know that Pakistan is, is confronted with this hybrid warfare, hybrid threat. So when we are confronted with this hybrid threat, it cannot be only defeated with kinetic operation by the army. It requires an holistic and comprehensive response, and that response is demanded by the students, by the civil society, by the ulama karam, by the local politicians and elected. So as a whole response in tandem with the military operations, they could easily, identify the threat and diagnose the threat and make both, as earlier I talked, it requires two-pronged strategy: soft corner and kinetic corner. Ulama can play an important role, especially in shaping up the narrative, especially that terrorism and terrorists are condemned in every aspect, irrespective of, it does not, no caste, no ethnicity, no country supports the terrorism. So the role of ulama karam is very much important. Civil society need to play a very critical role in assisting the armed forces, intelligence agencies in pinpointing the fault lines that exist in our society, because we do know army as a whole cannot play a single role. So it is the role of civil society, ulama karam as a whole society is very much imperative to completely eliminate and root out the causes of terrorism from society.
Thank you very much, Sangeen Khan, Panezai Analyst, who have joined us and to have talked to us about this terrorist incident that happened very recently. Of course, we had the latest details from Naushi and Panjgur as well. 13 terrorists have been killed. Also, 3 soldiers embraced shahadat and 4 soldiers were also injured. Now, this needs to be tackled on different levels, and that is what we were discussing with Sangeen Khan, Panezai. Let's come to our last 2 stories very quickly. Both the stories concern India. The first is the India Press Freedom Report 2021 by the Rights and Risk Analysis Group that talks about the journalists that have been killed, injured, and the media houses targeted in India in the year 2021. It also talks about the lack of media freedom and all the efforts made by the current BJP government to curb media freedom in the country. It talks about 6 journalists that have been killed, 108 journalists that have been attacked, 13 media houses that have been targeted the last year alone. It also talks about the different regions from where these journalists have been killed and also have been attacked. And they also talked about the FIRs that have been put against the journalists so that their voices could be muted, so that the reality of what is happening in India and in the illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir could not come out and could not be told in the proper way to the world. And they also talked about the physical attacks on the journalists that have been mainly reported from Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi, who is the leader of the opposition. And in Lok Sabha on Wednesday, in fact, Rahul Gandhi attacked the Modi government on different measures, whether it be unemployment, economic divide, or foreign affairs. But what he talked about as far as foreign affairs is concerned is, and I'd like to quote, he said huge strategic mistakes have been made in Jammu and Kashmir. And of course, here he was referring to in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and in India's foreign policy. He also said that India today is completely surrounded and isolated by different countries, and he named Pakistan and China as well. He said we have been weakened, that is India has been weakened by this current government. He also said that this current government has brought Pakistan and China together, something that India did not want at any time. Nevertheless, these are of course statements that have been made by Rahul Gandhi, quote unquote, and I wanted to share this with the people who are listening to our show so that we totally understand that despite whatever India might be tom-tomming across the world, inside it is weakening by every passing day, and of course there are huge irregularities and instabilities that are plaguing India as well. Let's see what happens in the days to come. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news story segments and of course things that concern you, myself, Pakistan. I always end my show by talking about COVID-19 and this pandemic that is plaguing the world, including Pakistan. We need to be very vigilant. We need to get ourselves vaccinated and follow the standard operating procedures. Allah Hafiz.